log, stardate 7403.6.
Are you pretending to do a captain's log?
I saw that, but I don't believe it.
A Vendorian doctor.
Shapeshifter? Boo.
Look, I can set you up with somebody great on the Cerritos. There's that Philosian and Tactical. She seems like a nice plant person.
Intelligent plants?
Orion's little game of neutrality and piracy is over.
For your information, mini Orions haven't been pirates for over 5 years!
Time to take this puppy off its leash! Warp me!
Maybe we shouldn't start the show like this.
Oh, no, this is exactly how we should start the show.
Wait.
Just take it away. Take it away.
All right. I'm Aaron Harvey. She's Jessie Gender. Welcome to Drawn to Trek. If you haven't left yet, this is our first real episode where we're reviewing. We're going to edit the show. We're reviewing the show. Jesse and I have had very long weeks. I went to the premiere, and then I got thrown into a project that has an insane timeline, and so we're joking that we are drawn to couch to go take nap.
But look at you just putting out there. It's like, oh yeah, I just went to premiere. It's no big deal. It's fine. It's fine. It's whatever. It's okay. I'm cool.
I brought you stuff.
You did. You did bring me stuff. I'm excited for stuff.
So Monday, I opened up my email, and it's just like, you're invited to the Lower Decks premiere. My first thought was like, in real life? Because I thought, this makes sense, though it's another one of those online things.
Yeah, because the season one premiere they did, the for those of you who don't know, the Zoom panel,
yes,
like sort of premiere.
Yeah, it was very fun, and especially the fact that you could very easily talk to the people that were working on the show, which is not exactly the easiest thing to do in a real live premiere.
Yeah.
You know, because they always have somebody around them, and it's like you feel like you're going to interrupt if you're like going up to them,
and be that weird fan that's just like, because that's what I would be. I'd be like, "Hi, nice to meet you. I'm just gonna weirdly stare at you because you're cool.
You're from TV.
You do the television, the thing that I like."
So
speaking of which, how was the season 2 premiere?
Well, yeah, so I looked at this thing, and it was all outside, because for people who don't know, I had a heart transplant a few years ago, so I have to be extra careful about, like, trying to avoid COVID. So I asked my doctor, and he said, well, it's about as safe as you can get, because we were outside. People had masks when they were in bigger groups, and it just, everybody had to be vaccinated. You had a little app that you had to go through, and so I felt safe. And it was very nice to actually be around people again too. Mm-hmm. And that was what they were saying. It's like none of the cast and crew, like, since the start of this, have been together.
Yeah, I mean, that you see interviews and like panel stuff with them. They've been like recording in their closets, like.
Right.
Yeah.
And Mike McMahan said half of season 1 and the entirety of season 2 have all been done remotely.
Yeah.
So this was the first time he was excited that, like, real humans, or he can hear them laughing.
I can see people reacting to the thing that I made.
In fact, instead of just trying to recap what he said, I'm going to play a little bit of his speech right now.
Welcome to the CBS Radford lot. Sorry? Okay. Tawny Newsome, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, we're about to watch Star Trek Lower Decks, and I know there's people in the back being like, I wasn't informed we were sitting, but now this is that, where I'm informing you we're sitting. I prepared nothing for this because I knew there would be people at the bar that needed me to stall, and weirdly people in the photo line who also need me to stall. But thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is my first time outside in 2 years, which is pretty cool. That means there will be 6 more months of winter. I know that's not how that works, and that's not even an accurate joke, but anyway, jokes don't have to be accurate. Star Trek Lower Decks, where does it come from? Where does it go? You know, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I did create Star Trek Lower Decks. Thank you. Thank you. I did not create Star Trek. Nobody...
So, no, I'm not just cutting him off. Something happened with my recording. So the best part did not get recorded. He basically said, I created Star Trek Lower Decks, but I did not create Star Trek, where you hear Tawny Newsome booing him. And no one knows who created Star Trek. Some say it was Gene Roddenberry, others say it was someone called the Traveler, but the truth has been lost to history. So, unfortunately, so did that audio clip, and I don't know anybody else who has recorded it.
We are so proud of this second season. You know, we made most of the first season during the pandemic. Don't know if you've heard of it. Launched it, loved it. The entirety of season 2 has been made during the pandemic. There are people I should be thanking. I should be thanking all of my amazing crew on the production. Right? I should be thanking them. I should be thanking the amazing artists at Titmouse. I should be thanking Harry Kelly, our supervising director, Nolan O'Bannon. I mean, there's so many people to thank who work on the show, but I'm not going to. I should be thanking all of our friends at Paramount Plus, but I'm not going to do that either, you know? I just think they should know in their hearts that I appreciate it. It's not incumbent on me to thank them right now in front of everybody. It's embarrassing. Everybody at CBS, the Roddenberrys, Trevor Roth, you know, all of the writers on the show, everybody, and occasionally a big thank you to the cast, who I don't know if you know, are really, really awesome and very, very funny. Secret hideout. Not so secret anymore, am I right, ladies and gentlemen? Alex Kurtzman, Aaron Byers, Heather Caden, all rule. And because I didn't prepare anything, now I'm in that part of the list where I don't know who to thank anymore. So, oh yeah, Jack Quaid's not here, so how about a big round of applause for him? He's in Canada. So that's pretty cool. I hope this is being filmed so he can glare at it on his phone when he sees me doing this. But seriously, everybody making Lower Decks absolutely loves it. We cannot wait to drop season 2 next week. And I don't know how many folks here have seen these first 2 episodes that you're about to see, but it kicks off a season of tons of fun, tons of Easter eggs, because I know you guys love those Easter eggs. And thank you so much for coming out. We know it's a crazy time. We're making you sit in a false neighborhood in the middle of the valley, which is very odd. But this is the first time we've been able to share this show with people live. Like, we've all been sequestered and cloistered this entire time, and now there are branded blankets, and that's a really big sea change for us, and it's really cool. So thank you very much, everybody. Anybody I forgot to thank, we have a season 3. I will thank you first. I swear to God I will thank you first. And please enjoy the first 2 episodes of Star Trek Lower Decks season 2.
And it was on a big screen, so that was actually pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And the effects, the look and feel, hold up on a big screen. It doesn't feel like, oh, they just blew a cartoon up. It's kind of impressive.
Yeah, I mean, watching season 1 and then after watching this episode, like I can assume like this show like holds up really well on a big screen, like especially that opening sequence, which we'll talk about.
And the opening sequence, if you've noticed, that's been sort of, the render has been bumped up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The ship is much more detailed, and they've changed the Romulan Borg scene.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, look at you. It's almost as if you know your animation and your graphics. I'm just here for
almost.
I'm just like, ooh, it looks pretty.
Well, I have to give credit to Ian, the person who my friend Ian Carroll, who was also in Night Shift, which was it was Lower Decks before there was Lower Decks. Mm-hmm. It was improvised Star Trek, where we were the shift that was on duty during the night when everybody was sleeping. Which
I actually saw before you and I knew each other. Which was very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So he was there, and he was just like, "Oh wow, that's more detailed." And my brain was just like, "Pretty," basically the same thing.
Yeah,
it was just like, I was looking at everything. It's like, and I was looking for new scenes or additions or something like that, because between Star Trek Next Generation episodes or seasons, they shifted sometimes, or they added a different planet or a shine to it or whatever. So I was trying to see if that's what was happening, and they did have new stuff, but I didn't really notice. Like, oh wow, the ship is really more. It has like the Aztecing on the hull is stronger and.
Sure. Yeah. The Aztecing. Yeah.
That's what I've been told it's called. It's the that kind of the crisscross square patterns.
Yeah.
that-
No, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's really cool. I do not have the expertise, but I'm sure it's like really, really. Like credit to the animators, they do a great job. But I can
Yes.
just so I can sit back and be like, ooh, pretty. But they do a really good job. But yeah, how was the rest of the premiere? I know you got you got a picture with Jerry O'Connell, which he's like, the picture's like he's so tall.
He is gigantic. Well, we got there, because it's Los Angeles. We thought, okay, Los Angeles traffic. We should leave early. Mm-hmm. We got there very early. It was like you're given a card when you come in, and the card was like where you would sit in the rows. Mm-hmm. We were card number 3. So
That's
I am literally like, as Mike McMahan is talking about, like, we have more Easter eggs this season. He literally looks at me and says Easter eggs. Because we had our conversation about the animated series. Mm. But yeah, so we got there and came in, and it's just sort of they were in the middle of kind of finishing up the red carpet, but there were so few people. It's a red carpet event, but it was just like, are you sure we were supposed to be invited to this? I'm honestly not sure who still had invited me. I'm have to kind of look into that, but
yeah, it's cool.
I know that someone did invite you. Who invited you?
Oh, really? I mean, I did get an invite, but I don't live in Los Angeles anymore, which is like the one time. It's like
the one time.
Yeah, it's like I've never been invited to like a premiere like that ever before. I mean, I've had some when I worked at the Advocate. There was like a couple things here and there, but I was never actually invited to watch the premiere. I was always like at the red carpet event and like had to interview people and stuff, but never got invited as just someone to enjoy a premiere. And then this
is the first time I've not been pressed.
Yeah, and it's just like the one time I actually just get to like get an actual invite. I can't go because I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. I'm like, damn it.
But yeah, so we were sitting there, and then Jerry O'Connell came up to me and said, "I enjoy your Twitter feed." I'm like, "What?" And like my brain was like broken at that point because I'm like, "What? Huh?" And it was really interesting. A real issue kind of came out of all of this, that people behind the scenes are not immune to negative commentary. And I feel like, even more so than like Discovery and Picard, I don't even know if they pay attention to anybody online, that it really feels like the kind of the fandom menace, it starts to take their toll. And I know Jerry, who is now going to be doing The Talk, I think, because he's a talk show host. People they don't want him because he replaced Sharon Osbourne, and so I think he's just in the middle of a bunch of negativity.
Yeah, there was that, and then he was also like fighting back against some of the stuff online too. Like I think there was some like there's a Star Trek Discovery hate account which hates on everything that he was fighting back against vocally, and I mean we can talk about that in a second, but finish your story.
Yeah. No, one of the things that he said that he really enjoyed from others' feeds as well is that the positivity. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he totally agrees. Like, that doesn't mean you have to love everything.
No, but
just the just coming at it at a positive view, and not like, oh, I don't like this, so you should lose your job, or
that's the
so
stuff.
hard.
I mean, we don't need to talk about this too much, but it's just the thing that just frustrates you the most. It's the gatekeeping and the need to like, oh, like I'm the only one that can be right. Like, for example, yesterday I released a video on YouTube that was my video that was like, I love Star Trek Lower Decks, and here's why. It was like,
and you have to check it out if you have not seen the video. Go on YouTube and find it, because the editing alone, it's like, if as much as I enjoyed editing the intro to this show, it feels like you enjoyed the editing.
I love
that show.
That video was just done out of like, I love this show so much and I just want to rant about it for a while, especially since a lot of my other videos have been kind of on harder topics as of late, because talking about trans issues sometimes goes that way. So I just needed a break, and like I just really want to gush about the show and talk about something I love. But regardless, I posted the video up, and like there was like 2 or 3 tweets, and it always happens because I'm in this Treco Twitter sphere, and they follow me, and they're just like, well, you clearly don't understand Star Trek. This show is antithetic. I'm like, why you gotta be like that? Like, I'm not here. I've said numerous times, like, you don't have to like this show. Like, if you're like, Star Trek Lower Decks doesn't do it for me, I think it's not what I like about Star Trek, or it isn't Star Trek to me, that's okay to say. But what I hate is when people like say, like, you clearly don't understand Star Trek. You're dumb. You're stupid. This is like, number one, what Star Trek have you been watching if you don't think that this show doesn't get Star Trek? But even then, it's like, it just like the incessant need to put people down in order to prove your validity as a Trek fan. It just constantly frustrates me, and it. Yeah. it deeply saddens me sometimes, but I feel like those are the small but vocal minority. I feel like there are the positive people that really love this show, that really care about it, that understand that, like, even people who don't like it are still like, that's fine that you love it. Like, I even had people on the video who commented, were like, yeah, Star Trek Lower Decks is not my Star Trek, but I appreciate that you love it. I'm like, that is the right attitude. You don't have to love everything that I love. You don't have to like everything that I like. But like,
I think just seeing positivity and like being like excited about something in a positive manner is also fun. Like, clearly you enjoy it, and people who might not be their thing are like, oh, okay, that's awesome. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and it's like, and it's people's like, you don't get Trek. It's like, dude, I have probably forgotten more about Star Trek than you will ever know. So yeah,
I've had somebody like tell me that I didn't understand the animated series. Like,
you literally wrote the book on it. Like,
okay, sure. I don't want to keep bringing that. It's not meant to bring that up every
but it's I know it's hilarious though. It's like, you don't get the end. It's like, you wrote the literal book on it. Like, it's right behind you.
Well, this is I'll move back into the premiere with that because I got to talk with Mike McMahan. I was very excited about that, and he's just like, can I tell you, every time that we have to look or we want to add something from the animated series, I go, bring me the book. Just like, and I just like the fact that something that I worked on, Rich and I, is a resource for a current Star Trek show is just like,
that's insane. That's amazing.
It was a very brain melting evening. It was just, everything was just like, how is this happening?
No, that's absolutely amazing. It's really, really cool. Cause like, I don't know, like I can speak for me, and I know you probably feel the same. Like, Star Trek has been like a thing that just means so much to me throughout my entire life. It's how I like learned about myself as like a trans person. It's how I discovered like my sense of morality, because I'm not really a religious person, and not to hate on like religion or anything like that. But for me, like, this show is what taught me that sense of
that's
like,
where you find your center or your
exactly,
moral core
exactly. And so this show just means a lot to me. And so to like hear you, I know you probably feel very much the same. And so it's like to hear that you actually like have affected the show and the people behind the show. That's like that is the craziest thing to hear. Well, we should start actually talking about the episode, because everyone's just talking like, all right, these two just realized, oh, look, we were talking about premiere. Oh, look, we're just like, they're probably just annoyed. So,
so the new Star Trek,
yes,
season
premiere. We got to talk about it. Yeah.
So we open with Mariner being tortured by a Cardassian in a very familiar looking scene. However, she's wearing like Olivia Newton-John track pants or not track pants, shorts and the wristbands and the headband.
Workout gear. So this opening scene, I talked about it in my review. This scene is so great because it does like so many different things and so many different levels. Like, not only like, so basically the whole thing is like she's like, it gives us a recap of where her character is, because she talks about like, oh, I'm working with my mother now, I'm upset that Boimler's gone. It's been
a few months since the last episode from season 1. So
it's like a recap of that. It's a cool like Cardassian chain of command reference going on here. Then we also learn that it's like on the holodeck, because then she runs into a hologram version of Boimler, who also does more exposition. With a great reference.
Save me! They keep showing me lights.
Yeah, which is great. I wish it was like, I actually didn't check. Did they show how many lights there were? Were there 4 lights, or were there 5?
There were 4 lights where she was.
Okay,
but I don't think we saw the front of where he was.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, it's referencing the episode Chain of Command where Picard gets the light shine. It's like, you say there are 5 lights. There are 4 lights. Yeah, that whole bit. So it's a good recap, but also it's a good recap. It's a fun sequence. But it's also the learning that it's on the holodeck. It also kind of like the fact that she programmed in Boimler to be there. Kind of like, I think it subtly hints like at her arc, because that shows that like she's still using the holodeck for therapy, which I think is like a cool character note to like reference. Like it shows progress with her character in a subtle way, which I really appreciated. And then just the whole bit, like it's on the holodeck, is just a funny. Well,
and I love the conversation she's having with the Cardassian. It's like, does that make me a bad person? It's like, you're a terrible person.
yeah.
It's like, words hurt as much as weapons. It's like, good.
Yeah. I loved it.
And then the door opens, and Jennifer, the Andorian, which I'm so glad we got to see again. Mm-hmm. It's like, Captain wants you. It's like, what? Is that how you work out? Like, you stage, what is it?
Cardassian
right, yeah. It's like, how do you work out? Yoga. It's like, oh, that's unique.
It's It's great.
I just like their little banter. Like there's and the reference that she said, that is kind of an Easter egg.
Yeah,
where it's like, it's like, I know we're not supposed to have interpersonal conflict, but I just hate that Andorian. But that's a reference to Jean's edict that in the future no one has arguments anymore because everybody gets along, which is not realistic at all.
Yeah, not realistic, and was limiting. I mean, and only exist. Like people say, like that's always was his vision. He only came up with that for season 1 of 2 of Next Generation. Was not on the original series at all.
And when you're ill and things are changing, it's like your thought process is very different. And I can imagine being like knowing that you're sick and like wanting to kind of repair things in your life and just like, okay, no more arguing, no more,
Yeah. And that
could bled over.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. And I also think like he became a little bit. This is a whole other conversation about Gene Roddenberry. I think like at that point he was more enamored with what Star Trek meant to society, like as a symbol, more than like telling good TV stories, because like that was part of his.
Drank his own Kool-Aid.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Whatever, we got the oil planet where they kill you if you step on grass, so I guess that's his real vision.
Well, not that wasn't Earth though, and that wasn't humans. That was those are other bad people. But yes.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's a very good reference, which I really did like. And then the leg day bit was great. It's leg day.
Yeah. You're like, why are you squatting? We're going to die.
Yeah.
I actually love that Cardassian. I kind of want to see her back doing like something.
The animation on her
was
was great, and I really I hope we see her again.
Oh, and having the ability to freeze the holodeck with animation as opposed to video is just great, because it's like, and these weird contorted faces, and it just stops instantly because it's on a computer and it's a frame.
Yeah, I always loved in Next Gen whenever they froze and you could like still see the people clearly breathing, like the hologram. Yeah. Like, oh, they're still moving.
Or it was very clear that they had just froze the film and then did a split screen or something, and the other side is like, oh, well, it's grainy and it's just not. Yeah. It
reminds me of that one episode of Deep Space Nine where like the one where the Bashir is like studying like the Romulan stuff with the Section 31 guy in season 7, and they like they're looking at different Cardassian people or Romulan people to remember, and they just like are standing frozen there, and just the actor just has to like stand there awkwardly while everyone's just talking around him. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
We should probably move on in the episode.
Yes,
but yeah.
move on. Yeah, we're in the teaser, and I'm not gonna, in this episode at least, I'm not gonna go over it because there's a ton of Easter eggs. But as they fly out, they're in an old Miranda class. It was NCC 1877, the USS Macduff, which, as far as we can tell, isn't any reference to anybody really in Star Trek, except for maybe Kieran Macduff, but that was the wrong time period. So.
It also could probably be someone. It could either be like someone who worked behind the scenes and Star Trek they're referencing, or like maybe one of the animators put their name on it, which would be cool.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of different things it could be.
So as the ship is shooting its way out of this Cardassian prison, it goes by just a ton of different ships, and you can tell it's the holodeck because some of them repeats. That's my headcanon, is that it's just duplicating ships or something. So there were runabouts, there was an old Klingon ship, a Romulan bird of prey, there were a few Delta Flyers, which is interesting to see more than one Delta Flyer.
Yeah. Knowing how often Voyager went through shuttles, maybe they just had multiple Delta Flyers at some point.
Well, the other thing I can think of is that it was such a great design is that they put it into production once they got back into the Alpha Quadrant.
That also makes sense too, yeah.
Could be. Bajoran Raider, a Dominion fighter, so they went through all of these ships as... You can tell that the animators just have fun doing that.
Yeah.
Like, just pulling out. But they're all ships that made sense
for Cardassian
to have like captured.
Yeah, like Jem'Hadar's and Bajoran stuff all make sense, yeah.
Yeah, and the runabouts, everything, but really the Delta Flyer, honestly.
Yeah, well, it's cool. It's a cool Delta Flyer. I like it. So moving on, one thing I do want to mention: the opening credits are the same opening credits from last season, except there's one quick change during the little fight where they have like the Borg ships fighting the Romulan ships that they had in season 1. Now they've added in a few more ships, including the Pac-Led ships from the end of season 1. Which I thought was really cool because, I liked that it just shows that this Lower Decks is kind of adding in its own canon into it and kind of showing us like, oh, we're kind of adding our own stuff.
That's their main villain.
Exactly. It's just sort of like having a confidence in their own like identity as a Star Trek show as opposed to like just being referencing a bunch of other things. Honestly,
I feel like that's what season one, this first episode is like, because it has a couple Easter eggs, but it is basically free of like kind of deep Star Trek stuff. I mean, there's one thing that they mentioned, but it's easily explained if you didn't know anything about it. So.
Yeah, it's easily explained. I mean, we're talking about like this episode being like the godlike, godlike stuff. But I mean, like they reference Gary Mitchell, which is
right,
cool. But like also godlike entities is just a Star Trek mainstay. Like every Star Trek series had a godlike entity. So that's.
But you don't have to have seen Star Trek or even know who Gary Mitchell was. Although if you watched season 1 and didn't know who Gary Mitchell is, you'll at least remember it because they actually give him a call out in the very first episode.
They do
at the end.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's like, do you even know who Gary Mitchell is? It's like, I think I could look it up.
I do like Gary Mitchell. He should have been the villain in Star Trek Into Darkness, but that's neither here nor there.
Yes.
Moving on. So we have our first scene with Mariner and Captain Freeman, sort of like having their like mother-daughter time, which I thought was kind of nice. Started setting up the arc for the episode where they're sort of talking about like Mariner's like, hey, I can do some power washing, and Captain Freeman's like, yeah, we don't really do that, but I'm the cool mom, I'm going to support you, and you can just see the forced like they're just forcing themselves to work together. It's kind of nice.
Starfleet does not prioritize aesthetics.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, really, I kind of think they do.
I feel like they do. Yeah. I mean, like they're all about like the pajama like color coding. It's all a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no,
they haven't cleaned their buildings since their Industrial Revolution or whatever. So the cities are just dirty.
And then Ransom's there watching, sort of being like feeling ignored.
He's been there the entire time that the scene started. We just didn't know it. He's just standing off to the side. So
yeah,
that's great.
It was a good like sort of like setup for the emotional core of the episode that goes forward.
Yeah,
sort of the dynamic between the three different characters going on.
And it's really actually is an interesting dynamic, because I'm sure in Starfleet there are families that serve like that. So they could.
I mean, you had Wesley and Crusher kind of had that dynamic a little bit too.
Yeah.
Not that we really saw a ton of like Wesley and Beverly didn't really have like a ton of scenes together. They did have a few, but as it went on, they didn't have a ton.
Yeah,
which is kind of.
Well, I think he was also. She kept saying he's at that age where they don't want to be around their mom or their parents, so I can kind of see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, so I mean, I like the fact that it's a realistic arc, because it can be applied to pretty much any real life kind of family dynamic or whatever. So it's again going back to the core of Lower Decks having emotional, smaller stories, I think, in some ways. So.
Yeah. It also just shows like progress from last season. Like it's not just like the status quo has been reset. Like there's a change here, which I did really kind of like. So.
Yeah, it didn't get. It was just like, oh, we just forgot that she was her mom, and yeah,
and that. Well, it's like also like now that they're working together, it's like, oh, the carryover from the character arc from last season carries over, and then we even saw that with like her doing therapy on the holodeck. So like Mariner's changed as a character, and her arc is different this season, which I liked seeing.
Her mom actually seems, although she's frustrated with her, does seem like to be enjoying that interaction much more.
Yeah, exactly. Even at the end of the episode too. So.
Yeah.
So then we go. Do you want to just talk about the two separate storylines, so it'll make it a little easier? We talk about Tendi and Rutherford. So we get a scene down in the lower decks area where there's sort of like sleeping area, and Rutherford is going on another date with the same girl from the very first episode of the premiere.
Yeah, the Trill.
Yeah, and so we sort of get this sort of idea that because Rutherford's memory's been erased, he's sort of like going through the same things but having different outcomes, because he's now on the third date with her. And Tendi clearly is jealous of that, but she's sort of saying like, oh, she's not admitting to the jealousy. You can tell from this very scene, like she's jealous of Rutherford being with like another girl. But she's not admitting to that. She's saying like, oh, it's something to do with his cyborg implant. I forget what she called it.
Synaptic memory, SMD. It was, I can't remember
something like that.
Yeah.
And so just like she's just clearly not admitting to the fact that she's jealous. Which I again, this is another thing too that I really, really liked, that it was showing that like I'm someone who personally I hate memory loss storylines. They're usually my least favorite type of storyline. But I like where they're going with this, that it actually has stakes and weight, that it wasn't like, because my problem with memory loss storylines typically are characters like having to go through and relearn the same things that we already knew that they learned, and then or we know it's going to be reset anyways because they'll get the memory back at some point. And so this,
like Lieutenant Uhura, where she just learned back her entire language by the next episode somehow.
Exactly. And so like I like this. This is the best way forward for me with this type of storyline, because it was like, oh, his memory was erased. We're sticking to that. That actually has weight here. Like he didn't get it back. And it's actually having a reflection on Tendi, and now puts her kind of in Rutherford's shoes, because the whole first season Rutherford was kind of chasing after Tendi a little bit, not sure how to express himself, and now Tendi's kind of doing the same, which I liked that it showed progress for both of these characters and didn't undo the memory loss stuff, because I feel like it would have been easy to just like snap the fingers and Rutherford's memory is back. Yeah,
it's been a couple months and now it's been restored. Yeah.
So I really like
and the
that.
fact that he has like the realistic thing about having memory issues and stuff too is that they have different likes sometimes, and just the things that can change when your brain chemistry changes.
And he likes
the fact
pears.
That he likes pears.
Yeah,
which he never did before.
Yeah.
That's what tipped her off.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
You hated pears before.
And so going through this storyline, we'll just sort of stick with this one. Tendi sort of sets him up to like starts like shocking him with all the little discs on him, which was great, which is a lot of fun. My issue with this. Sorry.
No, I love the part. It's like where it keeps zapping him, and then it's like there are two sets of twins lost at sea. Each shares a parent with the other, but no two sets are the same. What's the name of the boat? Just like, Salty Dog? Like, that's right. It is? No! Zaps her again.
Yeah. It was just a lot of fun. I think my only problem with this storyline, I mean, this is something I talked about in review because I was like trying to be a critic. Was just like it was just fairly like, oh, I saw where all the jokes and all the beats were going. Everything. It was just like it was sort of like clear where it was going. But what I did like is in the end where they're like she's sort of like chasing him through the entirety of Cerritos,
trying to shoot him with medical venom.
Exactly.
Like, I'm using that from now on whenever I have to get a shot or anything.
Just hit me with my medical
venom.
Yeah. So just chasing him through the ship was a lot of fun, and I liked the conclusion, and also I liked the fact that they were doing that while the other storyline was going, Ransom attacking the ship.
You could literally see behind them like this giant molar and it's like behind the tongue. And, so
just
weird.
Completely ignoring that and just being like, that's going on.
Yeah. They are very good at that.
They do a good job of like having multiple planes of action, but also like treating it as like, this is a Tuesday.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a good job of that.
And I think later where they it's like, oh, so your brain isn't going to melt. Well, not now. Like it's Starfleet. Give it till next week. You know?
Yeah. And then the end of the sort of sequence is Tendi and Rutherford sort of like confront each other. Rutherford says like, why are you doing this to me? Or I don't know why you're and Tendi just says like, I was afraid because you have changed, like you like different things, that you would stop liking me as a friend. And I thought that was like a really sweet little moment, her sort of copping up to the feelings that we kind of could tell that she was doing, and that speaks to how well she's drawn as a character, that we could like watching it could tell that was what she was feeling and going through from the start, and her admitting it kind of was super sweet. And
not in a two-dimensional cartoon kind of way, just in the fact that we actually know that this character has like a depth to them.
Exactly. And then she sort of and then Rutherford sort of admitting like, oh, you're dealing with emotional issues through science? Like, of course that makes perfect sense.
Tackling an emotional problem with scientific experimentation, that's exactly what I would have done.
Exactly. It was absolutely wonderful. I thought it was super sweet. And then also the little bit where Tendi's like, but don't date I forget the ensign's name, but don't date her anymore, and Rutherford like, oh.
Yeah, that little like just like
Yep.
It like leans over into like his ear or something like that, I think.
Yep. I love that. It was all
that was
wonderful.
Great.
Yeah. So I don't know. I just kind of did the recap of it. But did you
on their date, they were going to go swimming with somebody from Cetacean Ops.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention. Yeah. And also, I liked also the bit where she's just like, "Oh, my sister always has to mention that she has a trail." This is great.
She got to say, it's like, oh, did getting a symbiote change her so she has all these memories in the of her past lives? No, she just likes to mention it all the time.
Which is so true. Actually, I like how they like build out culture in an interesting way on the show with like even like little jokes like that, which is so nice. Yeah. All right, so jumping over to the sort of main storyline, we have Mariner goes down to the planet with Ransom, starts power washing and not listening to Ransom, and Ransom getting frustrated.
She's I got my own side mission. Bye bye.
Yeah, yeah, which is great. I also loved the whole bit, like this whole culture, like it defines itself by like numbers are really important, and so it needs to be a dignified number, and so they couldn't pick as like common number.
And we froze. I'm like, there has to be some sort of number Easter egg in there. It's like, maybe there is, but I could not find it.
I'm surprised they didn't do like a 47 or something, like a 47.
Or 8675309 or something like just some well-known phone number or the phone number to Titmouse or something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, that was just that was a good bit. But then she starts power washing. And I think that this might be a reference. We were like talking about this before we were recording, but she starts power washing. You see like a mural that has like whales on it, which my reference was like
space whales.
So my thought was like, oh, are these the whales that created did this society create the whale probe from Star Trek 4?
And something that lends credence to that is when she washes off like the sphere that's on top of the building, which causes all this. It does like they had that. Remember that sphere that came out of the probe and everything like that. So I'm like, okay, it's like spherical energy thingamajig. Sure, there's a connection there.
Yeah, I'm thinking like maybe the society, like this ancient society or whatever it is that worshipped space whales was the one who made the whale probe. I'm just saying, we never got an explanation, so maybe they're subtly giving us one, which I thought was cool. But then obviously this strange energies, quote unquote, come out of the
the name of the title as well, or the title of the episode as well, Strange Energies.
Exactly. And just hits Ransom with it and gives him godlike Gary Mitchell-like powers.
I love when they show Gary Mitchell because it looks like a TAS version of Gary Mitchell with like shading.
It was actually very cool. I was like, I would get a poster of that like picture of Gary Mitchell. It was actually very cool.
Maybe that'll be on the shirt.
Yeah.
They're doing the T-shirt club again, which has gone up about $20 more. So it's like I might buy one or two separately, but I don't think I'm going to do the whole thing.
I did the whole thing. I gotta.
Well, hey, then each episode, maybe you can.
Yeah, well, yeah. I also, if I put them on a shirt, I can justify it as like, oh, it's costuming, so I can write it off for a tax thing.
There you go.
See, so it's the nice benefit of making Trek your job.
That's true.
So yeah, but no, it was a very cool image I liked of Gary Mitchell, and so I also like to honest as like, well, how did the Enterprise crew deal with Gary Mitchell? Like dropped a boulder on him. Like a styrofoam boulder. Oh my gosh.
Spoilers. But no.
Yeah. Sorry for spoiling the first episode of Star Trek.
No, I meant yes, exactly. I meant for later in this episode.
Yeah.
We never mentioned this before, and I will go back and retroactively put it in. This whole entire thing is spoilers. We're not going to pretend that we're going to like give you a non-spoiler version. We're just we love this show too much to like try and remove things.
Yeah,
it would be an unintelligible like things happened with the and remember that. Oh, no, I can't talk about that. And just watch it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, no, it's we're going full spoilers on it. Yeah. Also, one other thing too, I forgot to mention too, is we learned that Captain Freeman is going through like a command evaluation thing. I believe that's this episode. Right? Yeah. And so I like that because that seems
her husband called.
Yeah. So I like that we're starting to see a setup for her character arc this season. Like she's gonna have like a like a little bit of like, oh, something's going on with like her.
It's her year to be promoted because she got the whole Pac-Led thing got her a lot of
attention.
Eyes from Starfleet. Yeah.
I also wonder, are we ever going to see Mariner interact with her dad? Because he's shown up a couple times, and we never
just
really,
on screen.
Yeah, we never really see him interact with her. So I would like to see that at some point.
Yeah. Maybe he'll show up.
Yeah, I hope so. But anyways, I also love that Ransom with his godlike power starts like doing gym equipment, like making gym equipment, and it's like, what was the lines like? It's easy to become a god. It's hard to stay a god.
Yeah.
The trick is staying a god.
Captain's like, what's he doing? It's like he seems to be concentrating on his buys and tries.
Yeah.
He's lifting trees.
Yeah. It's just wonderful.
His Jacktopia.
Yeah. And starts like making like different things into gym equipment and starts making other.
Yeah, he turns people into basically
himself.
And the guy who is the special guest is Randall Park, who played Jimmy Woo in WandaVision and the dad on Fresh Off the Boat. But yeah, so he's like, don't change my constituents.
Yeah, that was really great. There's also a bit where like he twists, like Ransom twists a building and is like, he's running a museum of popular culture or what? Or sorry, a museum of popular music, which is someone who works at a museum of pop culture. Who I did do stuff with them. It's like, wow.
Looking at the two, they're not dissimilar either. The look, the what he's twisted it into looks very much like a Frank Gehry building.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that was a subtle reference to
the Museum of Pop Culture.
Especially when Mariner's like, well, that sounds like something you don't really need.
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, the Museum of Pop Culture does have like some Star Trek ties. Like they actually have done like, Star Trek shows and things there, so it could have been a reference to that. I don't know if they'll appreciate them saying it's like you don't need that. Yeah. There's I since I work there. I worked as a contractor there, and I still do some stuff from time to time. But they have a literal chat. We have like a group chat that's like just people geeking out about Star Trek. So I'm curious to see when this episode airs. I'm curious to see what their response will be to that. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I almost was like, just ask them. Like, wait, this actually hasn't come out. We're recording this a little bit earlier.
Yeah. Well, just so everyone knows, we did get screeners. I know. Yes. We're CBS shills. It's fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah,
with that.
Whatever. I'll shill. It's fine.
No, but for as shilly as we are, whatever, it's like there are still things that we will like. No, I don't like this.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no. Just because we get the screeners doesn't mean we're not going to say I don't dislike something.
Right.
Just so everyone knows. And yeah. Don't even get me started on that. But anyways, but yeah, no, we'll be honest about that. But yeah, that was just like that whole bit, and so it starts setting off a competition between not a competition, but like an issue between Mariner and Captain Freeman, because Mariner's like, no, you need to you have to fight him, you have to stand up to him, you need to beat him up. Yeah. And Freeman's like, no, we can try and talk this out, we can appeal to his ego. At one point, Ransom like becomes a giant head and starts floating up to the Cerritos, and then gets like
just very much like the green hand, like grabbing the Enterprise in the original series.
And then my other reference, he also gets his hands out. He looked like my touchstone for that was like Star Fox. It very much looked like Star Fox 64 with the main villain of that. He was just like a big head with the hands.
Okay.
I feel like it might be the case. I know like Mike McMahan and Jack Quaid were like talking about video games the other day on Twitter.
Oh yeah.
So I was curious, like it might actually be a video game reference, to be honest. It might be a Star Fox reference. It also could be the green hand reference as well. But
it's just a giant space head,
yeah. The reference for me just came from Starbucks. It might be something else. So, but I'm curious about that. But for me,
well, I love that it's like Captain Freeman is like just you're built really well, like you're a great commander, and it's like he's like feeling good from like validation or whatever. He just starts, so it's like.
And also, like the arc with him too was just like his like, why are you two trying to work together? You clearly hate each other. So it's like referencing sort of that small bit at the beginning. So that's like the arc clearly going on here. Like Ransom feels, insecure.
Well, because they were both lying to each other. Essentially, they're both trying to spare each other's feelings, and it was just making it worse for everybody around them at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that was all fun. My favorite bit with that too is when Ransom starts nomming on the ship with like you see the shields like bending and everything. That was great. So all that's really nice, and then eventually it just gets to Mariner is able to beat him by kneeing him in the balls, which is over and over and over again. And then
because his body's still down on the planet. Yep. Giant head's in space.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And that manages to make him puke up most of the strange energies, except for
the strange energies. By the way, when he shot it out, looked like he was like a rainbow, basically.
Yeah. It was colors. Like all the pride, gay pride there.
Yes, exactly.
Also we forgot to mention there's what's his name, the other guy who's like all of like basically the Ransom
Billups. No.
Billups.
Is it Billups? No, that's the engineer guy.
Well, anyway. The engineer. There's like the second,
the one with the mustache.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he's basically like a Captain Ransom fan club guy, which is kind of a nice little funny bit because he was in season 1. As well, but I think they just sort of like, all right, his characteristic is he's a big Ransom fanatic, I guess, which is it's a nice like comedic archetype to give to that character. And so that was nice, and then so eventually, and my favorite, the thing that got me the biggest laugh of the whole episode is after Mariner knees Ransom over and over again in the balls, Anna comes up with a forklift and just drops a boulder on him. I
And
died.
Boulder's what stops him in the very end.
It
He kept coming back every time. Yeah.
Yeah, I literally died with laughter at that. That just got me. I couldn't handle that. That was great.
Yeah, just like how did Kirk stop him? It's like threw a boulder at him.
Yeah. That was great. That was my favorite bit of the favorite joke of the episode.
I just love that she like the doctor is just like, yeah, I've dealt with this before, kind of. But it's like she's literally seen everything. It's like he'll be back to himself in about an hour.
Yep. And so we go back to the ship, and we have scene between Freeman and Mariner, and basically they come to terms with like, yeah, we don't really work together. We don't like working together, and so
They can do occasionally, but not all the time.
Exactly.
Basically.
And then she's like, you have people ready to throw me in the brig, and sort of does the like sarcastic Vulcan salute scene again, but this time like, much more affirming. It's like, I love you, never disobey me again. I'll do what I want.
I'll do what I want.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. And then we get a scene with them in the brig where we sort of learn that like everything's come full circle, everything seems back to normal. And Rutherford now says fuck pears. He's been fixed in that way. But then they sort of reminisce about like
they're
Boimler.
mealy and they're like
Yeah.
And
then they reminisce about Boimler and being like, oh, I wonder what Boimler's off doing. And so they cut to
Tendy's like, he must be having the time of his life.
Yep, and we cut to the Titan, and we see Boimler just like freaking out because everything's going to hell. They're fighting the Pachylids and everything's crazy.
And they headed. It's like, prepare to head into fluidic or fluonic space or something like that. Basically, and their faces all stretched back.
Yep.
Like, ah!
Yep. It was just great, and Boimler's just freaking out. So it was a good little like tease for the next episode, which I liked. I liked that the season premiere was very much like. I thought it was going to be very easy for them to like be like, and this crew and then this crew and back and forth. But I like that this one felt very much like, okay, we're going to sort of like set up where all the characters on the Cerritos are and not sort of like split focus.
And they also didn't solve like having Boimler come back or whatever in the first like 10 minutes or something like that. They didn't undo that either.
Yeah, so I really liked all of that. So that was all that was all a lot of fun. My only concern watching this episode, and I know we've sort of because we've gotten screeners. I've seen a couple episodes past this, but just focusing on this episode. My kind of main concern that I see here a little bit is now that we've sort of set up that Merida's not working with her mother anymore, I do worry that like the show's sort of like trying to fold itself back into the status quo when it sort of set up a lot of big changes at the end of last season. Yeah. And so I worry a little bit, going into the next few episodes is like the show's going to be kind of quick to be like, we set up all these big changes, there was ramifications, there was differences, and then we're kind of setting things back up to what it was in season 1. So that's just something that, like, watching this episode, even without the context of future episodes, that I was sort of like, oh yeah, that's interesting to sort of see and a minor concern. Well, I think the emotional core of all these characters has progressed forward, I think, really well. Yes, I do worry about that, like it being. Effectively the same show in terms of like the physical stakes of everything. Yeah, but I think the thing that I like the most though is that this episode really showed me that like the emotional core of the characters has progressed forward. Especially later Star Trek. Voyager was probably the worst and most egregious of this. But it was like very much like the episode ends and then the characters sort of back to square one and like all the emotional context that we'd gotten. Sort of was erased.
I'd say TNG was worse than Voyager. Voyager did have some growth.
It's arguable. I feel Voyager was probably worse in my opinion, but TNG, because I feel like TNG at least had some stuff with like Worf and Picard had some forward momentum. The rest of the characters kind of didn't, but the Worf and Picard at least had some. But anyways, it is sort of like a Star Trekian trope that like like horribly traumatic stuff happens to characters and then immediately gets erased. Right. And so I like that this show. Is very much showing like no, the stuff that these characters went through, like Rutherford losing his memory, Tendi sort of starting to have feelings for Rutherford, and sort of progressing that way. Mariner sort of like getting therapy on the holodeck and having a better relationship with her mother. All that stuff is here.
And Mariner also being pissed that Boimler's not there.
Exactly.
He took off. So that's still something that needs to be dealt with.
Exactly. So yeah, all of that stuff like carries forward, and I really appreciate that like emotional core and context for these characters has progressed forward and doesn't just like immediately just get snapped back.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
awesome. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up for this first episode. I'm really excited to get to the next one. There's going to be a lot of fun Easter eggs, which you can even tell from the trailer.
Yeah.
Like there's just so many things. It actually, when I joked earlier, Mike McMahan was talking about Easter eggs, and he looked directly at me.
Yeah.
Just like one of those, like, we're the core audience of like of those things. So
we will find them. We will find them, and we will
Yes.
know them. But I think we should do our. I mean, this one's kind of easy for me, but like do our favorite Easter egg of the episode. My favorite is clearly they keep showing me lights. That was my favorite one. Yeah.
I think my favorite Easter egg is probably the interpersonal conflict.
Yeah, that's
Just
a good
like
one too.
that deep, like outside of Trek even, that's like along the lines, well, not exactly, but of Zahn, a character that didn't exist in a show that was never made. So it's
Oh, poor Zahn.
Yes. Thank you, everybody, though, for joining. If you could go over to iTunes and give us a review and a rating, that would definitely help people find the show. And we will be doing something with those reviews in the future.
Yes.
We have to just get it planned out. There's a lot of things happening at one time, and trying to coordinate it has been a challenge. We also, coolly, have a sponsor. We are sponsored by Fansets. In fact, I'm wearing my... little Lower Decks badge.
Look at you being all fancy smancy.
Yes. And if you would like your own Fanset badge or pins, there's Badgie, which I love. They have all these Lower Decks things.
Badge is clearly the best one.
Yes. You can go to Fansets and use discount code DRAWN, all caps, for 10% off. And that's not just off the badges. That's off of like a gift card or pretty much anything on the site that you could put into a cart. You can get 10% off of.
So do it.
So
do it now.
Yes. But they and the Fansets is going to be continuing their badge program. So there are lots of other stuff coming down the road. So like if you can think of a badge that's happened, it's probably eventually going to be something you can put on your shirt. Well, I think we're good to go.
Yeah, I think we did it. Yeah, let's wrap
excited.
it up, and we look forward to seeing all of you for episode 2.
Yes. Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.
Don't you give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute! They keep showing me lights.